Hello everybody, how are you all doing today? Wherever you are, I hope this podcast finds you well. This is Pavan from CD Baat, the podcast. While we wait for our co-host Ms. Lovepreet Kaur for the next episode, I think let's get started. It's been a long time and I was missing and so dying to talk to you all about a lot of things which we could not over the last couple of weeks and months. Of course, I know the podcast goes on at times and we sincerely apologize for that. And I know that a lot of people have benefited from this podcast and we thank you for the continuous support you continue to give us despite all the problems that you have. And I think this is one topic I've not spoken much about and I won't take much of time either. We all started off, if you remember, let's go back in time to when we were kids. The first thing that we were exposed to was toys, and after toys, we graduated to cartoons. And there's, of course, comics, and a lot of comics became movies too. If you remember, Tintin. And Tintin was a Steven Spielberg movie was made out of it, and he made a movie out of that. And I remember it was such a good experience watching it in 3D in a theatre in Hyderabad. So, how many of you even recollect reading comics? I'm sure a lot of you had, like me, grown up reading Tinkle, and of course, if not Tinkle, Archie's, and a lot of other comics out there. Of course, DC, Marvel, all of these which came as comics and later graduated to become big, best-selling. Box office breaking, record breaking movies. And now there's such a big franchise that everybody in the world is loving it. Of course, and apart from that, even closer home, you had the Pandi, which came in the Tinkle series. And apart from that, Amar Chitra Katha, which was also part of it, came along with Tinkle actually. I think if I'm not mistaken, Tinkle was started by Amar Chitra Katha itself. And Amar Chitra Katha, let's take a moment to remember the one who started it despite a lot of opposition. Mr. Anand Pai, who is no more today, but he was the one who took the initiative to actually start the series of Amar Chitra Katha, which sort of literally took every kid back to all the old times and how India was and what the culture of India was. I'm sure a lot of people out there got inspiration from Amar Chitra Katha, which was started by Anand Pai. And the best example for that is, if you all remember, the director who made Bahubali Part 1 and 2, S.S. Rajamouli, he has gone on record multiple times stating that Bahubali was actually inspired by his growing up, when he grew up reading Amar Chitra Katha and the kind of characters that the book showed, the comic showed. The story goes that Amar Chitra Katha actually was started by Anand Pai out of an experience which made him very upset. So apparently he was actually listening to a quiz or something on Doordarshan, and apparently he found that people were able to answer questions in a quiz about the Western culture, Western history, etc. But nothing could be answered when it came to questions about Indian heritage and Indian history. That triggered him, and that's how Amar Chitra Katha was born. And of course, apart from Amar Chitra Katha, and personally, let me state on record that Amar Chitra Katha, I grew up reading Amar Chitra Katha, and I have to thank people at my home who exposed me to this early on, and the characters and this account the books gave, the comics gave, is outstanding, and I haven't seen yet. It's easier to recollect to this day stories from Amar Chitra Katha and then read long history books which are like having a lot of information. All of this would be condensed and in a much simpler form and given to you in Amar Chitra Katha. And that's how a lot of people actually were, exposed to our culture and our heritage, and most importantly, our history. If not for Anand Pai, I'm sure a lot of us would not be actually knowing the true history. And in the most simplest way, he's created a revolution amongst all of us to actually know and get interested in history. And the comics are so good, and the drawings and everything is so nicely presented that you actually are taken back in time when you actually read those comics. Talking about comics, of course, Supandi was one, and then Amar Chitra Katha, and then came the lovely characters from Tintin, Adventures of Tintin. Herge's Adventures of Tintin was something I was exposed to later after starting with Amar Chitra Katha, and that, man, what a cheerful read. I mean, to this day when I read Tintin, it's such a delight, really. And Tintin has always, all of these Tintin stories are so close to reality, and yet they seem to be a fantasy world. And it's been a pleasure always reading Tintin, and one of the best ones I've read in Tintin was King Ottokar's Scepter, where he goes on to save a king from being dethroned and exiled. And that story is so engrossing to this day that when I read, whenever I'm sort of confused about certain things, that comic sort of gives me sort of an inspiration how Tintin saved the day. And also Tintin and the Moon Mission, which is like a really nice spin-off from how Apollo 11 Moon Mission went. And that story is really well written and well captured, that to this day it's a very, very nice read actually, and delightful. And so Tintin was something that a lot of us would have not read or will have read, but I'm sure you'd love it if you check it out. It's available on a lot of platforms. You can always buy it, and of course I won't encourage PDF, but of course it's out there. You can always check it out, and Tintin has been like really nice. To this day it's like a childhood experience each time when I recollect Tintin and images from Tintin comics. And of course, how can somebody forget Asterix, the French, the Gauls and the lives of the Gauls and the ancient Rome and the depiction of Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, and that world was really something I to this day find really, when you imagine how could the Rome and times of Caesar would have looked, and how one village would just stand and dominate the might of Rome, and actually resist the might of Rome, to be very precise. And I'm sure Asterix was such a fun read, and the way the story is framed with a village and the chieftain and the happenings around the village and the characterization in Asterix is just superb, that it actually mirrors today's society. And if I may draw a weird parallel, there's a Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma out there which is having a similar specific characterization which are very outstanding, and to this day I find Asterix to be a mirror of that, but of course it's not a really right comparison, but that's something I really love reading. And I'm sure those who have checked out Asterix would agree with me on this, that it's a really powerful imagination that takes one to actually build such nice stories. And the number of stories written in Asterix are huge. Olympian, Asterix and Olympic, and of course the way the Olympic Games story is written is so beautiful, and also the other ones about Asterix and different places. He even comes to India, and of course goes to Rome often, and where the Jews and the magic potion along with Gadafix, the druid. A lot of things are there in Asterix. Just one can talk on and on, but I would like to stop here and take a moment to actually take you all back to the comics world. And there was such a beautiful world that was created by these powerful and creative geniuses, to be honest. Anand Pai for Amar Chitra Katha, and Herge or Georges Remy, as they say in French, Georges Remy for Tintin. And I'm not sure if he was French. I think he was Belgium. He was from Belgium, Amsterdam. Correct me on that. I might be wrong. You can always check it up on Google and let me know in the comment section. And of course, Udezo Ngakini for Asterix. And I mean, such a delightful read. And to this day, I really wanted to talk about Asterix and all the comics that I've read so far. And I think I got the right time today. I'm sure you'd all check it out once it's out there somewhere. And I'm sure you'll all pass it on to the generation after you. And because it's been the last two generations have benefited greatly from reading all these teen comics and the kind of imagination that it sort of builds in you. I'm sure that was a great experience reading all of these comics, and I loved reading them a lot, and to this day I keep reading them once a while, and the imagination that it creates, or rather takes you in the world which is like so close to reality but so far. I mean, there's nothing better than that, is there? And I hope you love this podcast and going back to comics. I'm sure one of you or either some of you would take this episode as a key to start reading such comics, and I'm sure you'll all love them. And on that note, happy reading comics. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching, or thanks for tuning in. See you all in the next episode. This is your Pavan signing off. Bye bye.